And today's film begins with Pete Coslow's final day as an FBI agent. Pete's a former soldier and an ex-convict who now works as an FBI informant. And according to his backstory, an undercover cop caught him smuggling fentanyl. And when Pete got imprisoned, his FBI handler, Erica Wilcox, encourages him to work for the FBI in order to obtain information on Richard Klimek. And this guy, Richard, was Pete's former crime captain. And since Pete didn't really want to spend his time in prison, he agrees to do this and he becomes an informant. Having worked his way up the ranks within the gang disguised as a drug dealer, Pete collected enough evidence to lock up the crime organization and the drug lord Klimek. And now that he has enough evidence against the crime organization, he arranges for a special operation with Erica to ambush Klimek along with the evidence of large numbers of drugs that he would smuggle through the Polish consulate. And during the operation, Pete was equipped with a secret listening device so that the FBI could find out everything that was happening around him. The next day, Pete and Stazak, who's Klemek's nephew and very trusted, go to the airport to pick up several kilos of drugs hidden in a bag and begin their journey to take them to Klemek's presence. On the other hand, Erica and the FBI troops had prepared to carry out the ambush mission as planned. However, on the way, Stazak suddenly changes direction and declares that he found a potential buyer and would sell the drugs to him. Pete was unable to prevent Stazak from selling the drugs to someone else out of concern that his cover would be blown. Erica, on the other hand, was being concerned and suspicious as Pete's actions begin to deviate from their plans. When they finally meet the buyer, Pete quickly realizes the man was an undercover cop and that he was trying to arrest them. Pete makes an attempt to get rid of the man so that Stazak doesn't kill him, but the cop becomes irritated with Pete and shows him his badge in front of everyone. And Stazak obviously kills him. Meanwhile, Erica, who heard gunshots over the wire, finds out that the policeman was dead, and she calls off the operation and abandons Pete. And after this screw up with the cop, Pete was brought in front of Klimek, and Klimek accuses him of messing things up. And because a cop was killed, Klemek's drug business is now in danger of being destroyed, and Pete must be held responsible by going to prison and running the drug operation there. At first, Pete refuses this, saying that he's not the one that killed the cop, but Klimek threatens to kill his wife and daughter if he disobeys his orders. Klimek also mentioned that Pete owes him and his family a debt, and that the only way he can repay him is by going back to the same prison where he was locked up before and start trafficking drugs there. And Pete had ultimately no choice but to follow Klemek's instructions, and meanwhile, Stazak and his men throw the policeman's body into the river. And not long after, Pete meets with Erica and her boss, Keith Montgomery, at a secret place. They tell him to go along with Klemek's plan and to act as an informant while imprisoned, and in return he will be released immediately if he can obtain substantial information and evidence about Klemek's drug ring. And hearing this, Pete was furious that the FBI liked the idea of putting him in prison to get information about Klimek. But Keith tells him to start thinking about his family because either way, Pete couldn't get away with this. And meanwhile, NYPD Detective Edward begins to investigate the murder of the undercover officer and suspects the Polish mafia. Edward then returns to the crime scene to retrieve CCTV camera footage where Pete is seen leaving the crime scene followed by the FBI vehicle driving by. Edward immediately asks his men to find out about Pete, and after learning about Pete's background, he assumes that Pete is the one that killed the officer. He immediately then issues a warrant for Pete's arrest for the murder of an undercover police officer on a mission. And after Pete was arrested, Edward then goes to Erica and Keith. But neither Keith nor Erica divulge any information about their plan to catch the drug lord Klimek, and they deny knowing anything about the murder of the undercover cop. But Edward assumes that the FBI purposefully put Pete in prison to investigate something related to the murder. And because of his suspicions, he decides to find out for himself because he was determined to uncover who was behind the murder. Inside the prison, Pete was greeted by members of the Klimek drug network who would assist him in distributing drugs while incarcerated. But Pete was also being watched carefully by the prison warden named Sleuth, who's suspicious of his actions ever since his arrest. Wait, hold on. Did you subscribe to our channel? Come on guys, you're here, you're watching the video. Help us out by hitting the subscribe button, as it really helps out me and my team to make more videos for you guys. And now, let's get back to the recap. The next day, Pete began doing his job distributing drugs from one prisoner to another in the most secret way possible not to be discovered by the prison guards. And apparently, the day's sales increased rapidly, so they got a sizable profit. Meanwhile, Edward visits Pete's wife Sophia to look for clues about the case involving Pete. And even though he insists that he can help Pete get out of prison because he's sure that Pete is not the killer, Sophia still chooses not to say anything to the cop because Pete had warned her not to trust anyone. Unable to force Sophia into telling him the truth, Edward gives her his business card and tells her to call him whenever she needs help. Following that, Edward visits the prison and attempts to communicate with Pete through one of the inmates who serves as his informant, but Pete declines. At the FBI headquarters, Keith orders Erica to kill Pete and to stop all their missions to catch Klimek in order to cover up the FBI's involvement in the operation that led to the death of an undercover cop, and since Edward's ongoing investigation threatens their career at the FBI, Erica disagrees at first but later accepts his orders. Meanwhile in prison, Pete is confronted by a gang leader named Phelps who controls the drug trade inside the prison. Phelps thought that Pete is arrogant for selling drugs in his area and he wanted to teach him a lesson. Phelps and his men, assisted by the corrupt Sleuth, then torture Pete and try to kill him. And amidst all the pain and torture, Pete finally reveals that he's an undercover FBI informant, here to uncover Klimek's drug ring who is in competition with Phelps. After hearing Pete's confession, Phelps immediately orders his men to stop torturing him. Pete then asks Phelps for help in investigating anyone involved in Klimek's drug ring, which he immediately agrees to. And on the other hand, Erica had ordered someone in prison to kill Pete. But Pete, already anticipating every attack, always kept a knife nearby for self-defense. And after receiving information about Klimek's drug network from Phelps, Pete contacts Erica so she would have him released immediately. However, since Erica is trying to kill him, she just didn't respond. Pete then gets swallowed by betrayal, and he learns that he's been lied to. He calls his wife and asks her to give Edward the secret audio recordings he taped while speaking with Erica in anticipation of times like this so that the police could use it as evidence. He tells his wife to take their daughter Anna and immediately get as far away as possible. And when Sophia goes to retrieve the recording that Pete has made of his interactions with the FBI, Erica arrives. Having heard their conversation, she takes the tape from Sophia, but she leaves the money that was also there and she tells Sophia to leave. Pete then had no choice but to reach out to Edward and reveal everything to him. Elsewhere, after learning that Pete has messed up in prison and is cooperating with Phelps, Klimek then orders Stazak and his men to kill Pete's family. Seeing the thugs in front of her house, Sophia rushes to call Edward and ask for help. Stazak immediately locks Sophia and her daughter in a room while one of the men pours gasoline all over the house in preparation to burn them alive. However, after receiving a call from Sophia, Edward immediately came and managed to kill Stazak's men. And while trying to save Sophia and her daughter upstairs, Edward was apparently shot in the leg. When Stazak comes downstairs while holding Pete's daughter hostage, intending to kill him, Sophia manages to free herself and shoots him immediately, causing him to fall down the stairs. Then Edward finishes him off with a headshot. And Klimek not only ordered his men to kill Pete's family, he also sent people to kill Pete in prison. And when Pete entered the room, one of Phelps' men signals to him that he's going to get killed today. And when he rushes to his room and tries to find his knife, he finds it missing. And the inevitable attack comes not long after, and Pete was nearly killed by a Polish gangster, but he manages to subdue his attacker. And when the guards discovered this, the whole prison was alerted and Pete immediately became a target. And in an act of desperation, Pete was forced to take Sleuth hostage and he knocks him unconscious to use him as a shield to escape from the prison guards. Meanwhile, Erica starts to realize that she made the wrong choice working with Keith. She then starts to feel very guilty about what she attempted to do, and she realizes that she's no different than the Polish mafia. And meanwhile, Keith has also found out that Pete had recordings that could bring him down, and he goes to the prison to kill Pete. And the FBI then surround the prison in order to assassinate Pete, and the troops had already taken their positions and prepared to shoot on Keith's command. And you know how I told you guys that Pete used to be in the military? Yeah, apparently he was a sniper there, and he carefully marks the possible trajectories of the bullets he expects to be fired at him, and he positions 2 cylinders of volatile gas in strategic positions. He moves the gas cylinders to a point where it could be easier for him to escape, and after that he changes clothes with Sleuth and strategically places a CO2 tank behind them. He then wakes Sleuth and tries to make it look like the man was holding him hostage, causing the sniper to target him instead. And when the sniper was about to shoot, Pete slightly changes position so that the bullet missed and shot the gas cylinder, causing a huge explosion in the tower. Erica arrived at the police station shortly after the explosion when Pete was about to be picked up by an ambulance. And Erica, knowing that the man who was wearing the warden's clothes was Pete, immediately goes into the same ambulance. And Erica apparently had a change of heart, and she secretly hands Pete her gun so that he can catch everybody off guard and pretend to hurt Erica so that they can both get away. And moments later, Pete goes to see his wife and daughter. But he realizes that if he goes near them, many of the undercover cops that are waiting for him would arrest him, and he decides that he now needs to stay away from his family until the heat dies down. And the film ends by showing us Erica and Keith having a conversation on a boat, and the NYPD finally arresting Keith after Erica uses wiretaps to record his words, where he openly asks her to kill Pete. And at last, Edward and Erica collaborate to assist Pete and protect his family by sending Pete into hiding until the FBI investigation into the corruption was complete. And this is how the movie comes to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed our recaps. Make sure to leave a like, leave me a comment, and also subscribe to my channel. I love you guys so much, and I promise to see you on my next recap. Bye.